Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you tonight that you are not here by accident. You didn't just stumble into this moment. You were led here by a God who loves you, who is for you, and who knows every detail of your life. And I want to tell you something that will encourage your heart. God is blocking what the enemy meant to destroy you. You might feel like you're facing an impossible challenge, like the odds are stacked against you. Maybe people have tried to tear you down, or maybe circumstances have been pushing you to the breaking point. But I want you to know that behind the scenes, God has already gone before you. What the enemy intended to break you, God is using to build you. What was meant for harm, God is turning around for your good. Tonight, we're going to see that you are not alone, you are not defeated, and that God Himself is shielding you with His power. Get ready, because victory is on its way. God is your shield and protector. Throughout life, it's easy to feel exposed and vulnerable to the harsh realities of the world around you. Every one of us faces battles that seem too big, burdens that seem too heavy, and threats that feel too close. Maybe it's a difficult relationship, an unfair situation at work, financial pressures piling up, or even health struggles that have left you feeling overwhelmed. In the middle of all this, it's easy to wonder where God is and why the waves of hardship seem to crash against you so fiercely. But the truth is, even when you can't see it, even when you can't feel it, God is surrounding you like a shield. He is standing between you and every attack that the enemy throws your way. A shield is more than a barrier. A shield absorbs the impact of the blow before it ever reaches you. That is who God is in your life. He takes the hit so that you don't have to bear the full force of it. You might feel the pressure, you might hear the noise of the battle, you might sense the heat of the fire, but it cannot consume you because God Himself is standing in front of you. Every plan of destruction that was aimed at you has to go through Him first. And you can be sure that nothing is going to get past the Almighty. There are times when you look at your circumstances and all you can see is trouble on every side. You may wonder why the enemy seems to come so close, but take heart. God has allowed only what will shape you, grow you, and draw you closer to Him, nothing more. Every fiery dart meant for you is intercepted by His strong hands. Every storm swirling around you is under His authority. Even when the fight feels intense and you can hardly catch your breath, you are safe because you are not fighting alone. The God who created the universe is your defender. You don't need to fear the outcome because the one who fights for you never loses a battle. Think of David facing Goliath in the natural. David was outmatched, outnumbered, and out-equipped. But God was his shield that day. Every time Goliath taunted him, every time David took a step forward, it was God Himself making sure that what was meant to destroy David never even touched him. And the same is true for you. What looks impossible to you looks like an opportunity for God to show His protective power. And let's not overlook those hidden places of protection. Sometimes the most powerful ways that God shields you go completely unnoticed. That near miss on the highway, that door that wouldn't open at the time you wanted it to, that job you thought you missed out on, those were all moments where God's shield was at work. Some of the most powerful protection in your life is invisible to your eyes, but you can trust that God is working behind the scenes. When fear tries to creep in and make you believe that you're an easy target, remind yourself of who your protector is. Speak back to the worry in your heart and declare that you are under divine cover. You are under the watchful eye of a God who neither slumbers nor sleeps. Every night when you lay your head down, every morning when you rise, God's protection goes with you. Every plan that the enemy forms to harm you is met with the greater power of the one who holds all things together. And even when you feel like you can't fight anymore, when weariness settles into your bones and you feel like you might go under, that is the very moment where His strength becomes most evident. God is not just your shield, He is the arms that hold that shield in place. Even in your weakest moments, He will not let go. Even if you drop your guard, He will not drop His. Every attack that looks like it might finally break you will be met by His unyielding power. Never forget that the enemy cannot go 1 inch further than God allows. He cannot gain one more victory than God permits. Every trial that you face is filtered through God's hands, and His hands are not only strong, they are good. Every fiery dart is extinguished by His faithfulness. Every scheme meant to take you out is under His authority. Every threat that roars loud is silenced by His voice. You can walk in boldness knowing that the one who shields you is greater than anything that comes against you. The enemy's plan cannot override God's purpose. Throughout life, there are going to be seasons where it looks like darkness is closing in, where it feels as though every attack is aimed right at your heart, and every setback is designed to stop you in your tracks. You may look around and wonder why these things are happening to you, feeling as if the enemy has gained the upper hand. But you need to remember something powerful. Even though the enemy schemes and plots, he cannot change what God has already decided for you. God's purpose for your life is greater than any plan of destruction that the enemy could ever come up with. From the very beginning, God knew you. Before you took your first breath, before you faced your first challenge, God already had a purpose and a plan written out for you. His word tells us that all of our days were ordained before one of them ever came to be. That means long before the enemy ever thought to attack you, God already had a plan for your victory. The battles you face do not take God by surprise. They do not cause Him to scramble, to rethink, or to change His mind about you. His purpose for you stands firm. When the enemy throws obstacles in your path, it's easy to feel like those obstacles have the power to define your future. But that is an illusion. Nothing and no one can rewrite what God has already spoken. Every trial, every difficulty, every painful chapter is still under God's hand. Nothing can tear you away from the path that He has for you, because His word cannot return to Him empty. If He said you're blessed, then you are blessed. If He called you chosen, then you are chosen. If He spoke healing, restoration, and provision into your life, then those promises are on their way. The enemy cannot erase them. Even when you feel like you're losing ground, even when fear tries to tell you that you'll never make it, remember this: God's purpose for you is not fragile. It cannot be destroyed. Every scheme against you is already a defeated one. Every plot is already a losing strategy, because when God is on your side, victory is not up for debate, as a certainty. Every time the enemy tries to convince you that you're too far gone, too broken, or too tired to make it, God is quietly working all things together for your good. Every setback is merely a setup for God to show Himself strong on your behalf. There may be nights when you lie awake and the thoughts in your mind feel like they'll never stop. The enemy tries to flood your heart with lies, telling you that you've missed your chance or that your mistakes have ruined everything. But that is simply not the truth. God's purpose cannot be canceled by your past. The very fact that you're still here, still breathing, still hoping, means that His purpose for you is still alive and active. The plans of the enemy cannot stop what God has already set into motion. Think of all the times in Scripture where it looked like the enemy had the upper hand. Joseph was sold into slavery by his own brothers. It looked like his dreams were shattered forever. Daniel was thrown into a lion's den. It looked like that was the end of his story. Jesus was crucified. The enemy thought he had won. But in every one of those moments, God's purpose was not only intact, it was unfolding perfectly. The pit could not cancel Joseph's purpose. The lions could not silence Daniel's voice, and the grave could not hold Jesus back. That is the same God who is working for you right now. You don't have to fight every battle in your own strength, because God Himself is fighting for you. You don't have to strive or fear that the enemy will outsmart God's plan, because God is infinitely wiser. His purpose for your life was secured before time began, and it cannot be overturned by anything you face today or anything that may come tomorrow. The enemy may roar, he may intimidate, and he may try to steal your focus, but he cannot steal your future. That future is in God's hands. Every attempt to destroy you will end up making you stronger. Every moment that feels like a dead end is actually a door that God Himself will open. Every accusation that the enemy hurls cannot stick to you, because you're covered by the grace and righteousness of Jesus Christ. Every time you feel small or insignificant in the face of hardship, remember that you serve a God who specializes in making the impossible happen. When you trust that His purpose cannot be moved, you can stand firm no matter what you see in front of you. The enemy may plot against you, but God's plan is already set in place. Nothing can stop the good work that He began in you, and nothing can separate you from the love that holds you every single day. What was meant to destroy you will strengthen you. Life has a way of bringing challenges that can feel crushing in the moment. It's easy to look at those hardships, whether they come as a devastating loss, a bitter disappointment, a deep betrayal, or a personal failure, and assume they are the end of your story. The enemy loves to use those times to whisper that you're not going to make it, that this trial is going to ruin you, that the weight of it all will leave you forever broken. But that's not God's plan for you. What the enemy intended to tear you down, God intends to use to build you up. When you look back over your life, you can probably see those places where you thought you'd never recover, where you felt like giving up. Maybe it was a relationship that ended and left you feeling rejected. Maybe it was a job you lost or an opportunity that passed you by. Maybe you wrestled with sickness or struggled with fear that kept you up at night. In those moments, it didn't feel like anything good could come from the pain. It felt like destruction was knocking at your door. But when you put those moments in God's hands, when you trust Him, even when you don't understand, He can take those very things and transform them into something powerful, a testimony of His faithfulness and a reminder of your own resilience. God doesn't waste a single tear or a single trial. Every obstacle you face is an invitation to grow deeper in your faith, to lean more fully into His strength, and to discover new layers of endurance and grace that you never thought you had. Every disappointment you go through has the potential to make you wiser, more compassionate, and more grounded in who God has created you to be. Even the harshest seasons, those times when you thought you've been shattered beyond repair, can produce a new depth in you that you never could have achieved otherwise. That's because God is a master at redemption. When the enemy throws something your way meant to destroy your joy, your hope, or your peace, God can take that very thing and work it into your character, into your purpose, into the strength that you'll need for the next chapter of your life. Even if you can't see it right away, there is a process at work. What feels like a setback is often just a setup for a comeback. What looks like defeat can become a door to a greater victory. And as you walk through those dark valleys, one step at a time, you will begin to recognize that you are not the same person who first faced the trial. Every hardship you endure, every time you choose to stand and not give up, you grow tougher, wiser, and more equipped for the battles ahead. There is a fire that burns away fear and anxiety, and what's left is a purer trust and a deeper confidence in God's goodness. Every mountain you climb shapes you into someone who is not easily shaken by life's storms. That strength is a gift. It is a spiritual muscle that could not have been developed had life always been easy and smooth. It is the result of choosing to believe that God is for you, even when it feels like everything is against you. And as you grow in this strength, you become a light to others who are going through their own valleys. They look at your story and realize that they too can overcome. They see that you survived what was meant to destroy you, and they begin to believe that God can do the same for them. And as you lean into the promises of God during those difficult seasons, your roots grow deeper. You become like a tree planted by streams of water, unmoved by the winds and storms, because you know where your source of strength truly lies. What the enemy thought would take you out becomes the very thing that anchors you more deeply into God's grace. Every loss, every rejection, every setback, if you allow God to use it, becomes a stepping stone into greater resilience and greater purpose. That is the power of God working through your pain. What was meant to destroy you will not have the final say. Instead, it will make you wiser, steadier, and more determined to live the life that God has called you to live. Every broken piece becomes part of a stronger foundation. Every scar becomes part of your story of triumph. Every obstacle becomes another reason to give God glory as you rise, not defeated, but strengthened. God's delays are not denials, they're divine protection. In life, there are times when we pray for something with all our hearts, when we pour out our deepest longings before God, only to be met with silence or a not yet. It can feel incredibly frustrating when you've been waiting for an answer, waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for that door to finally open. Maybe you've been praying for a spouse, a job, healing in your body, or a dream to come to pass, and nothing seems to be moving. It's easy in those seasons to feel overlooked or forgotten, but you have to remember that God is never late. Every delay you face is not a denial, it's part of His perfect plan, a plan designed for your good. We live in a world that thrives on instant gratification. When we want something, we want it now. But God operates outside of our schedules and our deadlines. His timing is not rushed and His ways are higher than ours. What feels like a delay to us is often His careful process of preparing us for what we're praying for. Sometimes we think we're ready, but God in His wisdom sees that there are things that need to be cultivated. First, patience to grow, character to deepen, faith to stretch, so that when the blessing finally comes, we have the capacity to hold it. And just as importantly, God's delays often shield us from harm that we cannot see. What looks like a closed door, an unanswered prayer, could be the very thing protecting you from making a decision too soon, stepping into a role you weren't prepared for, or embracing something that would have pulled you away from God's purpose. The enemy loves to pressure you into jumping ahead of God, to make you believe that if you don't force your own way, you'll miss out. But the truth is that you cannot miss what God has reserved for you. It is already set aside with your name on it, and it will come into your hands at the perfect time. Think of all the examples in Scripture where delay was actually part of God's design. Abraham and Sarah had to wait decades for the son they longed for, yet Isaac was born at precisely the right moment to fulfill the promise God had given. David was anointed king as a teenager, but he spent years in the wilderness before ascending to the throne, years that shaped him into a leader after God's own heart. Lazarus was dead for 4 days before Jesus called him out of the tomb. And those who witnessed it saw a miracle that would never have happened had Jesus rushed to Bethany sooner. Every one of those delays had a divine purpose. Every one of those not yet moments was setting the stage for God to do something greater than they could have imagined. Your life is no different. The seasons of waiting, of wondering when your breakthrough will come, are not wasted. God is at work in the background, orchestrating every detail, lining up every connection, and setting everything in place. And as you wait, He's also working in you, deepening your trust, teaching you to lean not on your own understanding, but on His promises. What feels like inactivity is often one of the most active times in your spiritual life, because it's in those in-between spaces that your roots grow deeper and your faith becomes more genuine. If you will embrace the delay instead of resenting it, you'll begin to see that God is protecting you. Maybe He's protecting you from stepping into a relationship that would have pulled you off course. Maybe He's preventing you from launching into a career path that looks good on the surface, but would have cost you your joy. Maybe He's shielding you from circumstances you couldn't have handled if they had come too soon. Every closed door, every paused dream, every prayer that hasn't been answered yet is part of God's loving care over you. And when the right time finally comes in it, where you'll look back and see that every delay was a mercy. Every wait was a setup for a greater blessing than you could have managed on your own timetable. God is never haphazard. He is never careless with your life. He is meticulously working all things together according to His will, in His timing for your good. What looks like a denial is really His divine strategy to give you His very best. Trust that God is working behind the scenes. So often in life, we are focused on what we can see, on the circumstances right in front of us. When things don't change quickly enough, or when prayers seem to go unanswered, it's easy to feel like nothing is happening, as if God has forgotten us. But the reality is that God's most significant work is often unseen. Behind every closed door, behind every difficult season, behind every long wait, He is orchestrating details, moving pieces into place, and preparing a way where it looks like there is none. Even when it seems like nothing is happening, God is busy behind the scenes in ways that will leave you in awe when you finally see the full picture. Think of a stage play or a concert. The audience doesn't see what's going on backstage. They only see what's happening when the curtains part. But there are countless people working behind the scenes, adjusting the lighting, changing the set, fine-tuning the sound, all to create a perfect moment that will happen at just the right time. That's exactly what God is doing in your life. Even when you don't see any obvious signs of progress, He is making preparations. Even when it feels like nothing is going your way, He is setting you up for something greater than you could arrange on your own. There are going to be days when it feels like you're standing still, like you're stuck in one place while everyone else is moving forward. You may wonder why that door hasn't opened yet, why that relationship hasn't been healed, or why that promise you believe God spoke over your life hasn't come to pass. But in those moments, you have to hold on to the truth that God is never idle. Every moment that feels like waiting is actually a part of His perfect plan, part of a process that's making you ready to receive what He has for you. Sometimes God is putting the pieces together so that when your moment comes, you'll be equipped to handle it with grace and strength. Sometimes He's waiting because someone else involved in the story isn't ready yet. And if things happen too soon, it wouldn't work out for your good. Other times, He's orchestrating a series of divine appointments and connections that you couldn't possibly arrange on your own. What feels like a delay is actually His way of ensuring that all the right people, all the right circumstances, and all the right provisions come together at exactly the right time. And there are also moments when God is working deep within you. Maybe your character needs to grow so that you don't sabotage your own blessing when it arrives. Maybe your trust in Him needs to deepen so that you recognize His hand when He opens a new door. Maybe there are things in your heart that need to be healed before you can fully embrace the next season. That inner work can take time, and even though it's hidden from view, it's one of the most important parts of His plan. We often assume that God is only working if we can see tangible proof of new opportunity, a sudden breakthrough, a visible answer. But His work is not limited to what we can perceive with our eyes. Behind every delay, every pause, every unanswered prayer, there is a God who sees all things, knows all things, holds all things together. His hands never stop moving. Even in the silence, even in the waiting, even in the places where you feel overlooked, God is creating a future that will exceed your expectations. And because He's working behind the scenes, you can let go of your need to control everything. You can lay down the burden of trying to figure it all out. Trusting Him means resting in the assurance that every moment of your life is in capable hands. It means choosing to believe that the story He is writing is far better than anything you could dream up on your own. Even when you can't see the details, even when you don't understand the process, even when you feel like you're waiting too long, you can hold on to this promise. God is never late, and He is never passive. Every part of your journey is under His watchful care, and every delay is part of His divine setup to bless you in ways you cannot yet imagine. Victory is already yours through His power. Life battles often feel daunting. When you're up against obstacles that seem too big, too strong, and too impossible to overcome, it's easy to wonder if you have what it takes to make it through. Fear and doubt can creep in, telling you that you're going to lose this fight. But the reality is, as a child of God, you already stand on a foundation of victory. You don't fight for victory, you fight from a place of victory that Jesus Himself secured for you. Every challenge that feels overwhelming is already under His feet, and every enemy you face has already been defeated by His power. This isn't just wishful thinking, it's the truth of who you are in Christ. When Jesus went to the cross, He conquered every force that could ever come against you: sin, shame, fear, sickness, lack, and even death itself. The enemy thought he had won, but on the third day, Jesus rose with all authority in His hands. That same power that raised Christ from the dead is at work in you right now. That means that whatever you're facing, whether it's a personal struggle, a financial burden, or a spiritual attack, you already have access to the strength that can overcome it. You don't need to live like someone hoping for victory one day. You can live like someone who knows the outcome because Jesus has already secured it. Too often we wait to feel victorious before we believe we have the victory. But faith calls us to believe God's promises even before we see the results. God's word says that you are more than a conqueror through Him who loves you. That's present tense. Right now, not after the trial is over, not after the situation improves, you are more than a conqueror because of His power working on your behalf. When you understand that victory is already yours, it changes the way you face your battles. Instead of shrinking back in fear or panicking about what might happen, you can move forward with a sense of quiet assurance. You can hold your head high knowing that the one who is in you is greater than anything that comes against you. Even when the fight feels long and the odds look impossible, you have a God who cannot lose and who will not fail you. Every time the enemy tries to convince you that you're defeated, you can remind him that he's already lost and that you belong to the one who holds all power and authority. Living from this place of victory also means you don't have to strive or struggle in your own strength. God doesn't call you to muster up the power to overcome on your own. Victory is already part of your inheritance as His child. What He asks is that you lean into His strength, trust His timing, and stand firm on His promises. Even if you feel weak, your weakness is an invitation for His strength to be made perfect in you. Even if you feel tired, you can find fresh endurance in His presence. Even if you feel surrounded by darkness, you can call on the light of Christ that never fails. And you can face every new day knowing that you are equipped with everything you need to win. God has given you His word as a sword, His Spirit as a guide, His angels as protectors, and His peace as a shield. Every resource of heaven is backing you up. Every promise God has spoken is a weapon against fear and a reassurance that the outcome is settled. The circumstances may not change overnight, and the battle may still require perseverance, but your victory is not in question. It was decided the moment Jesus declared as finished. When you embrace this truth, it frees you from fear. It releases you from worry. It allows you to walk through even the most difficult situations with a deep sense of trust, because you know that you are held by a God who never loses. What looks impossible in your hands is entirely possible in His. What feels like the end is only the beginning of a testimony of His faithfulness. And as you stand in His strength, you will see walls come down, obstacles moved aside, and breakthroughs unfold. Because your victory is already yours through the unmatched power of God.